we need to trace back the onslaught against the residents of Mombasa in terms of the port, which started in the 15th century with the coming of the Portuguese, when Vasco da Gama came to the eastern coast of Africa, apparently to look for a sea route to go to India in search of spices and trade. But in reality, the adventure of Vasco da Gama was to take over the trade which was being conducted in the east and take it up and usurp it. He landed in Mombasa way back in 1498, after having done a misadventure in Kilimani in Mozambique. He then went on to Malindi, where he was welcomed by the king of Malindi, because Malindi had a problem with Mombasa. And he put up the stake, which is called the Vasco da Gama pillar, claiming Malindi and the area for the Portuguese. But because Vasco da Gama didn't have the resources to occupy the wide area covered by the trade in the east and in the region, they decided to impose their influence by charging a levy, which is a yearly tributary from the trade which is connected with the east and the Mombasa port. And the payment was usually in gold. The scheme allowed the people of Mombasa to continue with the import and export trade that was thriving. But every year the Portuguese came with their ships to collect their annual sum. They kept escalating this sum until it was unbearable for the people of Mombasa. And if you don't pay that tributary, the result was bombing. So by escalating this sum every year, and when they started seeing that people are starting to defy them, they opted to keep a permanent stay in the port of Mombasa and build a huge port, and that a huge fort, and that was the Fort Jesus. The magnitude of the fort, which was the largest in Africa, or the second largest in Africa, testifies to the importance of the region and the extent of the resistance of the Mombasa people. They decided to have local presence to monitor each and every ship coming into Mombasa, so that they extract the levy. Because of that, the locals sought to overthrow the Portuguese, and they sought help from the powers that sat in Egypt at that time. And through that mechanism, they put together a multinational force under the Sultan of Oman to come and assist the people of Mombasa to oust the Portuguese. After the successful removal of the Portuguese, however, the Sultan of Oman and his Arab friends, they decided that Mombasa and the coastal region, this part of Eastern Africa, was lucrative and the weather was good enough, and they sought to create their presence in the region, and they settled in the island of Zanzibar in order to exercise their rule over the coastal region. Mombasa resisted, and there is a history of resistance also to the Arabs who came to occupy the place. But the modus operandi was the same. They were interested in the port and what the port meant to them, and to extract levies, very much like what the Portuguese did. Fast forward, we had the coming in of the British colonialism. They were no different, but they were much smarter. They changed their approach. They became more hands-on. They chose to actually administer the port. They oversaw everything, and at the end of the year, they paid some fee to the Sultan of Zanzibar, a little to the local economy, and kept the massive balance to themselves. So as we can see, all colonizers were interested in exploiting the port of Mombasa. Fast forward to independence time and post-independence. The port of Mombasa was under the charge of the central government, because at that time we had the central government and then we had the local governments. Operations initially were divided between the port, and we had a port authority for that, and we have the Kenya Cargo Handling Services, which was the operational arm of the operations of the port. But subsequently, the port came under a single operation, and we had a mammoth entity called the Kenya Ports Authority. It is one of the few parastatals that actually makes money for the exchequer. The national government is paid dividends by the KPA, while the county governments gets virtually nothing. The economic model which was conceived for the KPA. And indeed, that was what was initiated when we got our independence, was one which was the trickle-down effect. The parastatal was a product of the central government. It was in charge of everything and everything at the port. And there was an allowance for connected business activities to be done by local communities. This, you must realize, is a position that existed, still exists, but it is a position which cannot hold water under the current constitution, that is the 2010 constitution. What we have seen recently is a total loss for the port of Mombasa, for the people of Mombasa. Suddenly, we were allowed a few operations to also be enjoyed for the benefits of the residents of Mombasa. But in the last few years, this has turned. All connected businesses, including clearing and forwarding, transport, were divorced from Mombasa, turning Mombasa into a shell. It has never happened to any port city anywhere in the world, where the benefits of the port became divorced to the local community, that the port is only a transit point. It has never happened. It is the first time this phenomenon is happening in Mombasa.